So recently I got an email that kind of intrigued me. The title to the email was, Boruto proves Naruto never needed any hacks. Now the idea behind this email was that if Naruto had been given any of the most important and most broken hacks in the Naruto universe during his time as the MC of this story, like the Byakugan, Sharingan, Rinnegan, adamantite ceiling chains, flying Raijin, so on and so forth, that Naruto would have become a universe-ending threat long before the Akatsuki could ever really get their Eye of the Moon plan moving. That is to say that Naruto is specifically not given hacks in order to not make him incredibly powerful so that the story could move forward in a way that made sense. Now the point trying to be made here is that the reason that Boruto seems so much more impressively powerful in his own universe than Naruto ever really did until the very end is because Boruto has received more things that could be categorized as hacks than Naruto did. That is to say, if you wanted to boil it down, that in a way Boruto has had it easier than Naruto. Boruto was born with more, given more, and was therefore able to become stronger than Naruto in a shorter amount of time through really no fault of Boruto's own. And as I sat there reading this email, it got me thinking, genuinely, between Naruto and Boruto, who had it easier from a power perspective? Who was given their power and who worked for it? Who was born a genius and who was born a genius of hard work? And thus today I want to explore the answers to all of these questions. Because today we're talking who's the real genius, Naruto or Boruto? Before we get to breaking down the intellect of this fictional father-son duo, guys, please, for me, like this video, subscribe to the page, and hit that noti bell. So in order to best understand what was given and what was earned for both Naruto and Boruto, we should break down what the two of them learned during their respective times as the MC of their own stories, and how they learned those things, who they learned it from, and if there was any things that were given to them that made learning those things easier. And as Naruto was the first MC, let's talk about Naruto first. Now, the main line of logic to the email that I received was that Naruto didn't receive any of the hacks that his parents had, like adamantite ceiling chains or flying Raijin. However, in both the case of Naruto and Boruto, they both did absolutely receive a fair amount of boosts from their respective parents, which can be represented most effectively by the fact that both Naruto and Boruto use the Rasengan, a jutsu created by Minato. Yes, Minato wasn't there to teach Naruto or Boruto the Rasengan, but considering the fact that the Rasengan was a jutsu created by Minato that was only ever truly used by the likes of Jiraiya, Naruto, and Boruto, people either blood related to Minato or his actual teacher, it seems pretty safe to say that Naruto and Boruto had a proclivity for learning the Rasengan faster than anybody else because somebody in their lineage created it. In the same way that Shikamaru has a higher propensity for learning something like Shadow Strangle because he is a Nara clansman. On top of this, in the case of Naruto, he eventually became a perfect Toad Sage, something that we also eventually found out that Minato was able to accomplish. And so making the argument that Naruto didn't get any hacks from his parents is just not accurate. He uses a jutsu created by his father and was taught Toad Sage mode by the person who taught his father Toad Sage mode and a bunch of Toad Sages. But regardless, let's talk about what Naruto was able to learn chronologically. The first thing that we ever see Naruto learn is the multi-shadow clone jutsu, a jutsu that he teaches himself after stealing the scroll of sealing from the Hokage's office. Now, we don't necessarily know how long it took for Naruto to learn the multi-shadow clone jutsu. He could have had the scroll of sealing for an hour, multiple hours, or maybe even a full day. However, we do know that by the time that Naruto is found with the scroll of sealing, he's all roughed up and covered in dirt. However, he has, in some capacity, mastered the multi-shadow clone jutsu. And while some people would say right here that Naruto was able to learn the multi-shadow clone jutsu just because he put his nose to the grindstone and worked as hard as he could, fundamentally that's not 100% accurate. The only reason that Naruto was able to make as many shadow clones as he did in a plea to save Iruka's life was because, one, his already insane Uzumaki chakra reserves, and two, possibly the additional chakra of Kurama. Because while we don't see Naruto leaking out orange chakra in the moment that he saves Iruka, fundamentally the way that the 8 trigram seal works is that it slowly but surely leaks Kurama's chakra into Naruto's body. So in some capacity or another, Naruto is always kind of using at least a little bit of Kurama's chakra, with the idea that eventually Naruto would adjust the usage of Kurama's chakra and therefore be able to capitalize on the power of the nine-tailed beast. But yes, fundamentally, the first jutsu that Naruto learns is not only self-taught, but also requires an insane amount of hard work. And you can say the same thing about the second jutsu that Naruto learned. Because, while not technically a jutsu, during the Land of Waves arc, Naruto, Sasuke, and Sakura all learned how to concentrate chakra to the bottom of their feet to do things like standing on water and walking up trees. And while technically Kakashi and Sakura helped Naruto in this endeavor, at the end of the day, Naruto learning how to concentrate his chakra to the bottom of his feet and run up a tree just as high as Sasuke boils one down to his own self-teaching again, and also an insane amount of hard work, as Naruto throws his body at this equation for days on end. On top of that, because of Kurama's chakra presence in Naruto's chakra circulatory system, in the early days of Naruto, and actually until pretty late in Naruto, it was more difficult for him to control the flow of his own chakra. And therefore, while Naruto and Sasuke achieved the same thing at the same time in the Land of Waves arc, from a difficulty perspective, it was actually more impressive for Naruto than it was for Sasuke. Now, the next thing that Naruto learns is the Rasengan, another thing that he objectively learns through the power of hard work. However, in this circumstance, Naruto is not self-taught. Well, one can absolutely make the argument that the help that Jiraiya provided Naruto with in his journey to learn the Rasengan was minimal at best, as it was really just Jiraiya checking the spirals on Naruto's head to tell him which way to spiral the chakra, and giving him a series of more and more difficult balloons to pop. Jiraiya did learn how to use the Rasengan from the person who made it, who is Naruto's father. On top of this, Naruto's ridiculous chakra reserves allowed for him to try and spin up this chakra ball in his hands way more times than any other person could possibly try to accomplish. And this is why Tsunade is so incredibly blown away by the fact that Naruto was able to learn the Rasengan in a week, because it took Jiraiya months and Minato 3 years to create. Now, obviously, the final solution that eventually allows for Naruto to make the Rasengan reliably is, like with so many other things, shadow clones. I once again do concede that Naruto has to work very, very hard to create the Rasengan, and Jiraiya is by far and away not there to hold his hand every step of the way. However, we also have to acknowledge the fact that Naruto's ridiculous chakra reserves allowed for him to practice longer and harder in the training of the Rasengan than anybody previous to it. Because, mind you, in the Land of Waves arc, Kakashi openly admits the fact that Naruto has more chakra than him, and that's without taking Kurama's chakra into the equation. That is just getting Naruto. And it's also important to note that you can increase the amount of chakra you have as you become a stronger ninja. So this was Kakashi looking at Naruto's absolute floor chakra-wise, and he still had more chakra than Kakashi. Now, after the Rasengan, Naruto doesn't really learn anything for a while. Time skip comes around, Naruto learns Big Ball Rasengan and how to break out of Genjutsu, but by and large, it seems as though during the time skip, Naruto doesn't learn all that much. And that's actually a pretty important talking point for today's video, so keep that checked away into the back of your mind. The next thing that Naruto learns after the Rasengan is the Rasen Shuriken, something that he learns in the early part of Shippuden, post-time skip. And while nobody can tell Naruto how to make the Rasen Shuriken because it's a jutsu he himself was creating, Naruto does source a lot of help in the creation of the Rasen Shuriken, as he recruits the help of people like Kakashi, Amado, and Asuma. And while we definitely can't give the credit of the creation of the Rasen Shuriken to any of them, they absolutely do help along Naruto's journey, as the idea to train in the releasal and application of his wind release by cutting a waterfall in half was not Naruto's idea. It was Kakashi's. Without Yamato nearby to make sure that if Kurama tried to take over Naruto, that he could be put back in place, Naruto wouldn't have been able to train nearly as hard in the creation of the Rasen Shuriken as he was able to in Shippuden. Now, you can absolutely make the argument that the reason that Naruto didn't really accomplish anything during the time skip was this exact reason, that Naruto couldn't be pressed that hard in training, because if he trained too hard, Kurama would leak out of him and he'd be put in a situation like where he almost killed Jiraiya again. And honestly, I would cede you that point. But at the same time, he was also traveling with one of the legendary Sannin who had sealing tags. And while one of the times when Kurama leaked out of Naruto, it almost led to Jiraiya's death, if you're gonna trust anybody in the universe to make sure that Kurama gets shut down inside of Naruto outside of Yamato, Jiraiya is a pretty good bet. But anyways, back to the Rasen Shuriken. The creation of the Rasen Shuriken sees Naruto not only learning how to apply shape transformation to his Rasengan, but also how to apply a nature transformation. And it's not until Naruto learns how to apply both of these things that he's actually able to throw the Rasen Shuriken. And here's the thing. Well, I have absolutely no doubt that one day, eventually, Naruto would have figured out how to make the Rasen Shuriken without his crazy hacks. The timeline with which Naruto was able to figure out the Rasen Shuriken was only made possible by the fact that he could use multi-shadow clone jutsu and had an insane amount of chakra. On top of this, a support system that pushed him in the correct direction. After the Rasen Shuriken, Naruto learned Sage Mode, something that we've already identified that he had a genetic predisposition to learning on account of the fact that his father was also a perfect Toad Sage. Ties into the fact that learning Sage Mode is something that you can literally only accomplish if you are talented enough. That is to say, if you have a strong enough body, enough chakra, and enough chakra control to mix your own chakra with nature chakra at the right ratio. And Naruto learning Sage Mode, while impressive, is one of the less impressive things that he's learned, as he had people like Jiraiya, Fukakusu, and all of the toads in Mount Mobuko helping him along the way. Yes, obviously, mastering Sage Mode took a fair amount of hard work, but I'd argue that outside of chakra control, Naruto was born with the majority of the things he needed needed to become a perfect Toad Sage. Now, the same cannot be said for KCM1. See, while yes, absolutely, Naruto had the best possible teacher to learn KCM1 in Killer Bee, a perfect Jinchuriki who had a mutually beneficial relationship with his tailed beast Kyuki. However, at the end of the day, becoming a Jinchuriki of Kurama and the way that Naruto had to undergo to become said Jinchuriki is something that Naruto and Naruto alone had ever done. And therefore, while Killer Bee could push him in the right direction and give him some useful pointers, fundamentally there was nothing really specific that Killer Bee could tell Naruto to help him in his journey to unlock KCM1. And considering the fact that unlocking KCM1 required Naruto to use Sage Mode to battle against Kurama inside of him, that's something no amount of direction is going to help you figure out. That requires raw strength, power, and the determination to get it done. Now, technically, Minato also did this exact same thing, but inside of Kushina, so you could kind of make the argument that Naruto had a genetic predisposition to accomplishing exactly this. But at the end of the day, this really isn't something that we should take from Naruto. The accomplishment of KCM1 is wildly impressive. After Naruto unlocks KCM1, he obviously unlocks KCM2, which, while Naruto had a somewhat limited access to tailed beast balls in KCM1, with things like his tailed beast ball Rasengan that he uses literally once, Naruto, upon unlocking KCM2, gets tailed beast balls. Now, Nick, are you gonna say that Naruto unlocking KCM2 was hard or impressive? Well, it's kind of a weird one. See, because here's the thing. Naruto and Naruto alone is the only person on Earth who would be able to unlock KCM2. One, because he already had KCM1, and two, because he was the only person on Earth who would be willing to see the good in Kurama and try to work with him. So Naruto unlocking KCM2 is less a reflection of his hard work and more a reflection of his demeanor. But you could make the argument that Naruto persevering through all of the hatred that Kurama threw at him over the years to eventually land with Kurama actually on his side, fighting the battle for good, is actually more of a testament to his perseverance than his demeanor. I would argue that his demeanor is just perseverance. So is Naruto unlocking KCM2 more about talk no jutsu or his hard work? I can't really say, but I'd argue that they're one and the same. Now, after Naruto learns KCM2 and the Tailed Beast Ball, he kind of in an avalanche of events learns a bunch of new things, like Tailed Beast Ball Rasen Shurikens or Kage Genkai Rasen Shurikens. And while we do have reasonings to explain why Naruto is able to acquire these things, we definitely don't see him work for these new jutsu like we see him work for all of the previous upgrades that he had gotten until this point in the story. And with that, that's basically everything outside of Baryon mode that Naruto unlocks during the course of his time as the MC of the story. Baryon mode he also doesn't work for. He just gives up his life for it, which is obviously very impressive, but doesn't require hard work. So with Naruto out of the way, let's now talk about Boruto. See, Boruto, like Naruto, inherits some of the jutsu of his forefathers, as he, like Naruto and Minato, has a kit that revolves around the Rasengan, and he, like his father and his father before him, also has proclivity for using shadow clones. However, fundamentally, Boruto is born with less than Naruto, both on the good and bad side of the equation. See, Boruto was born with nowhere near Naruto's chakra reserves. We still haven't seen Boruto use more than 4 shadow clones, a feat that Naruto surpassed 100 times over by the time that he was 12 years old. In fact, the first time that we ever see Naruto use the multi-shadow clone jutsu, he summons several hundred clones. Now, this doesn't necessarily mean in a one-to-one equation that Naruto has hundreds of times more chakra than Boruto, but it certainly isn't a good indicator that Boruto's level of chakra is anywhere near that of Naruto's. On top of this, Boruto wasn't born with a tailed beast, and while being born with a tailed beast isn't exactly an advantage, especially in Naruto's timeline, it means that Boruto didn't have an additional battery of energy to tap into whenever the situation got dire like Naruto did. On top of this, it also means that Boruto doesn't have Naruto's healing factor, but it doesn't mean that Boruto was born with nothing. See, what Boruto was born lacking in physical or spiritual aspects, he made up for in mental. Boruto was, and still is, probably the greatest genius we've ever seen in the Naruto universe. Capable of water, wind, and lightning release by the time he was a genin, by the time that Boruto was RMC, he could use a litany of different ninjutsu. So while Boruto starts his story stronger than Naruto starts his, ironically, in the beginning of their stories, Naruto has a much higher ceiling. As being multifaceted with a bunch of different jutsus and a bunch of different elemental releases does make you an incredibly powerful genin, but it also kind of just makes you a standard Jonin. Now, with time, when Boruto wants to learn some superpowered move that can allow him to level up to the level of his father, he approaches Sasuke about the possibility of Sasuke teaching him the Rasengan, something that Boruto picks up basically as fast as Naruto did. However, the key difference here is that Boruto doesn't need shadow clone help to create a Rasengan. However, the result of which is that the Rasengan that he creates is much smaller than the one that Naruto creates. However, on top of this, Boruto unwittingly accomplishes something that even his grandfather and Kakashi could not accomplish by accidentally applying lightning release to his Rasengan to make it a disappearing Rasengan. And thus, ironically, this Rasengan is actually a really good representation of the difference between Boruto and Naruto. While what Boruto pulled off was more impressive from a genius perspective, fundamentally it packed less of a punch than Naruto's straight-up Rasengan. Now, because of the litany of different jutsus that Boruto has access to, this Rasengan is kind of the last thing that he learns in part 1. Yes, Boruto gets better at wielding the power of the Kama marking, but we don't necessarily know the process in which that happens, and thus Boruto kind of goes into the time skip with the Rasengan, a loose control of the Kama marking, wind, lightning, and water release. And thus Boruto may go into the time skip stronger than Naruto, but honestly I can't really say. He probably does though. But I'll tell you right now, Boruto absolutely comes back from his time skip stronger than Naruto came back from his. As Boruto comes back from his time skip with a brand new arsenal of jutsu. Whether that be wind style breakthrough or purple lightning, water release surging seas, or way more importantly, flying thunder god and Rasengan Uzahiko. And thus Boruto did the exact opposite of Naruto and actually accomplished a lot during his time skip. And the craziest part about Boruto coming back from his time skip significantly more powerful than Naruto came back from his is that people will use Boruto actually accomplishing things during his time skip as a way to say that he hasn't worked for any of the power that he has. Though ironically, these same people in Naruto discourses will often talk about how Naruto isn't impressive because he got nothing done in the 3 years he was training with Jiraiya. And that's the thing about this. There doesn't appear to be any way to approach a time skip that makes everybody feel all warm and fuzzy. If Naruto and Jiraiya go off for 3 years and all Naruto learns is a big ball Rasengan and how to break out of Genjutsu, then people will say he was messing around the entire time or that Jiraiya was a bad teacher, while other more learned, scholared manga and anime enjoyers will say that the reason that Naruto didn't accomplish that much during the time skip was because Kishimoto wanted to show us Naruto's montage of improvements. However, when you go the opposite way and Boruto comes back from the time skip substantially stronger because he's had 3 years to train, everyone says, oh, well, he got stronger out of nowhere, when that's not the truth. Boruto trained with Sasuke for a full year and then trained with Kashin Koji, a literal clone of Jiraiya who has access to future iterations of Boruto for 2 more years. And here's the thing, we've done multiple flashbacks into the time skip that showed us all this, so we know exactly why and how Boruto has gotten stronger. And when you consider the fact that Boruto is most likely the highest level of genius we've ever seen in the Naruto universe, 3 years of high-level training is going to allow him to accomplish a lot. Now, he was able to master the more difficult jutsus using the power of the 10 paths, which through the medium of Kashin Koji allowed him to see into a future iteration of himself that learned all the jutsus that he actually learned during the time skip. That is to say, the Kashin Koji was able to look into the future and tell Boruto about the jutsus that he would one day unlock. And therefore, because Boruto would one day unlock these jutsus, Kashin Koji just said, well, let's do it now. Now, people will use that as a way to discredit Boruto's growth. They say, oh, Boruto had access to hacks that Naruto never could have even dreamed of. But here's the thing. The 10 path just allows for Kashin Koji to see to a future iteration of Boruto. An iteration of Boruto that learned how to use these jutsus, like Flying Raijin and Rasengan Uzahiko. And Kashin Koji himself says, just because I can tell you how to use these jutsus does not mean that you'll immediately know how to use them. Boruto still had to train in the usage of all of these jutsus over the course of the 2 years that he spent with Kashin Koji. So Boruto is just learning jutsus that he was going to teach himself anyways a little bit earlier. Tie all this in the fact that Sasuke identified Boruto to be such an incredible genius in just 1 year of training with him that Sasuke felt as though he had nothing left to teach Boruto, and that Boruto apparently trained himself ragged for 3 straight years, as Kawaki marveled at the strength that Boruto returned to Konoha with, asking him, how much have you trained over the course of the last 3 years, which prompted Boruto to ask Kawaki whether he's trained at all. And it seems as though every single person who's ever interacted with Boruto not only acknowledges the fact that he's an incredibly hard worker, but also an unparalleled genius. But here's the thing. So is Naruto. You see, you want to know the real key difference between Naruto and Boruto? The story doesn't lie about Boruto's character. Prior to Boruto coming into existence, Naruto was the greatest ninjutsu genius ever, bar none. Not Hashirama, not Neji, not Sasuke, Naruto. Naruto not only managed to add shape transformation and nature transformation to a Rasengan, something that Kakashi and Minato could not pull off, he also then eventually managed to add every single elemental release and several different Kage Genkai to a Rasen Shuriken. He mastered his relationship with Kurama to a point where he was literally able to separate a chakra avatar of Kurama from his body to go fight off on its own, applied shape transformation to tailed beast balls to turn them into Rasen Shurikens, and mastered Sage Mode so completely and so quickly that he was able to use it at the highest possible level to defeat Nagato Boruto one of the strongest people in the universe, not with relative ease, but still defeat Nagato. And yet throughout the entirety of Naruto's story, Naruto is simply talked about as a spunky go-getter, a hardworking dirt orphan who turns himself from nothing into something. And while hard work is absolutely a part of Naruto's story, just because we get a more detailed look into Naruto accomplishing that hard work does not mean that he worked harder than Boruto. Well, yes, Boruto has access to the 10 path, something that Naruto absolutely did not have access to. Boruto doesn't have access to the multi-shadow clone jutsu or an Uzumaki chakra reserve. He doesn't have access to the chakra of Kurama. In fact, the only access to chakra he has is Momoshiki's, and Momoshiki does not work like a tailed beast at all. See, for a long time, people believed that Boruto and Momoshiki were going to have a relationship somewhat comparable to that of Naruto and Kurama, but that could not be further from the truth. See, because by the time that Two Blue Vortex rolls around, Boruto's relationship with Momoshiki is more akin to early Gaara and Shukaku's relationship than Naruto and Kurama's. That is to say that Boruto has to live in fear of the thing inside of him, and if he slips up, runs out of chakra, or just bumps into Kawaki, he runs a real possibility of Momoshiki taking over his body and destroying the world. Which means that technically the stakes are way higher for Boruto than they ever were for Gaara, because Shukaku could be shut down by people like Rasa. See, because here's the thing, there's absolutely a large part of Naruto's life where Kurama is a hindrance. But even in those moments where Kurama was a hindrance, Kurama was also used as a tool. Whether it was in the battle against Haku, Neji, Sasuke, Nagato, when he was being thrown into a pit by Jiraiya, or Gaara. Multiple times throughout the course of Naruto's story, before he had a positive relationship with Kurama, Kurama was used in an advantageous way for Naruto. The same cannot really be said about Boruto, as Boroshiki coming out has only ever been advantageous to Boruto like 1.5 times. One in the battle against Boro, where Boroshiki kills Boro, and two in the battle against Code, where Boroshiki pops out for a second, scares Code, but Boruto still has to finish the fight. So really, as it stands, the only hacks that Boruto has is being able to see into the future, yes, which is definitely a superpower, though a superpower that only allows for him to identify the jutsus that he will have one day, and his genius intellect that allows him to adapt to really any situation that he needs to. Something that, whether or not you want to admit it or not, Naruto also has. But on top of this, the support system of Boruto is not nearly as large as the support system that surrounded Naruto for the majority of his life. Yeah, I know, saying that somebody had a smaller support system than Naruto is kind of crazy, but for the majority of the time that we, as a viewer or a reader, spend with Naruto, he does have a pretty big support system. Whether that's Iruka, Jiraiya, Kakashi, Asuma, or really any of the real ninjas of Konoha, no actual ninja of Konoha ever hated Naruto for having Kurama inside of it, which is why Naruto was able to go to people like Asuma to get pointers in Wind Release. See, because when I say that Naruto has a bigger support system than Boruto, I don't mean emotionally. Obviously, Boruto has allies like Sarada, Sumire, Shikamaru, and maybe even Mitsuki. From a training perspective, Naruto has access to way more assets than Boruto, at least in the post-time skip era, as now the only people that Boruto can lean on to help train him is Kashin Koji. And that's obviously a massive asset, but considering the fact that Jiraiya doesn't die until like episode 130 of Shippuden, it's also an asset that Naruto had for a large part of his story. Plus, Naruto also had Kakashi, Yamato, Asuma, and many others, like Killer Bee, who obviously couldn't tell Naruto how to be the Jinchuriki of Kurama, but could tell him how to be a Jinchuriki, an equivalent that Boruto does not have as a Karma Mark wielder. So when you ask yourself the question, from a power perspective, who had to work harder for what they have? Well, really, you could provide either Naruto or Boruto as solid answers. Emotionally, Naruto had to deal with a lot more than Boruto did, at least in the beginning of his story, but when you consider the fact that Boruto is now not only hated by the entire world, but is also an active criminal, I'd argue that Boruto's actually having it a bit tougher than Naruto ever really did. So if you had to ask me, I'd say, as crazy as it sounds, but Boruto had to work harder for the power that he has than Naruto. But I also couldn't blame you if you said that Naruto worked harder, because fundamentally, the both of them had very different struggles. Naruto had access to chakra reserves that Boruto couldn't dream of, but Boruto has access to ninjutsu prowess that Naruto could never dream of, at least until late Shippuden. So Boruto was born the better genius, but Naruto was born the better physical specimen. Well, whether you agree with that or not, I guess you're gonna have to let me know in the comments below, because I am genuinely curious to hear from you guys. Who do you believe had to work harder for the power that they have? Boruto or Naruto? And while you guys are down there in the comments below, please, for me, like this video, subscribe to the page, and hit that noti bell. Listen, just because we didn't get a montage of Boruto training does not mean he didn't work hard. It's been confirmed multiple times that he did work very hard.